Hi, I'm Zed.
Hi, I'm P.
Welcome to the Not Your Typical Sister podcast. We're two brown girls trying to open the conversation and share our experiences on taboo subjects.
We're not experts or doctors, so we recommend speaking to a professional if you need help or advice. So grab a cuppa, sit back and enjoy the podcast.
Hi, welcome to the Not Your Typical Sister podcast. I hope you're all well.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. It's sunnier today. Yesterday's weather was absolutely horrible. So I'm glad to see the sun out. Spring is coming. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. I'm all right. Everything's been all right. I'm glad, obviously positive, the sun's out and stuff. But I read something this morning and I can't stop thinking about it. But I don't know, maybe I should explain a little bit about what I read. So it was a story that came on the news about a 15-year-old black girl who basically was made to strip, take off a sanitary pad, kind of bend over, open her legs and cough in school by the Metropolitan Police. And this was all because someone smelled some weed. And when they searched her and did all of this stuff, they found no drugs. And I was just yeah, I didn't even have words to describe how I felt about that. And the thing is, if you read what the child said as well, it's just so heartbreaking.
Oh my God, my heart just sank when you told me that. So why? Because they basically smelled weed and that's why they strip searched her. Was there a teacher present or anything?
I have no idea, but it's obviously the Metropolitan Police. You don't think that something like that is going to happen, especially not in a school. How do we expect girls to grow up and feel strong and empowered when people you're supposed to trust, like teachers and the police and stuff, allow something like this to happen to you? You can't even imagine the trauma that this child's having to deal with right now. It's just, I don't even know,
Disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. I can't believe actually that they would do something like that, but I'm just so glad, I guess, of social media and news that such instances that probably have happened in the past as well, that they've just become more prevalent and we hear about them. Because can you imagine how many girls have been subject to something like that?
Yeah, of course. It's just so heartbreaking. And I think look, I know it's not the best topic for us to start the podcast with, but I feel like people should be talking about it. It's not okay, full stop. It's not okay. Something big needs to change. Our girls and just children in general shouldn't be treated like that.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I don't even know what to say. It's just horrible. I mean, you don't see these things on social, I haven't seen anything like that. I checked my social media feed this morning and I didn't see anything about this. So it's what trends? Why doesn't stuff like this trend?
Yeah, of course. It's just heartbreaking, isn't it? And food for thought as well. Think about things that are happening in the background that nobody's really aware of, really.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, that is sad.
Yeah, we should probably move on or move on with the podcast. I don't want to end it like that, obviously, but
there's not much we can do apart from ask people to raise awareness of these matters and talk about these matters to other people, and I guess educate our own little girls, nieces, cousins, just about, I guess, their rights. But then what can you do if the police are strip searching you? What can you actually physically do as a child? You can't. As a grown woman, you can't do anything. But it's just, I guess we just have to raise awareness, and that's what we're doing through this podcast.
That's true. How have you been? What's been new since the last podcast?
Oh wow, so much has changed since then. I mean, I'm back to full-time work. I'm still doing my baking on the side. Zyra's started nursery. So many things have changed. There's so much to discuss. I think I could do a whole podcast episode or series on my actual normal life. Why don't we move on to the discussions that we're going to start off with.
So in the last episode, I kind of mentioned about natural remedies that worked for me. So in this episode, I thought we could talk through some of the changes I've made in my lifestyle and eating habits. I'm saying that in inverted commas because I don't really want to use the word diet. I feel really strongly about diet culture and how it affects mental health. I think it's just become so totally commercialized and it doesn't make people feel good about themselves. And for me, it's more like a short-term fix rather than eating habits that you can incorporate in your lifestyle like forever. But anyway, I think that's a whole other episode. But yeah, sorry, you were going to say something.
I was just going to say, these are things that helped you with your PCOS.
Yes.
Okay. So what did you start with?
Before we go on to talk about what I did, maybe I thought we could talk about the different types of PCOS and where to start if you kind of are new to it and you don't really know much about it. Because although I had it for a long time, but only recently did I discover that there are actual treatments for the symptoms. And I found out about the symptoms, which I thought was part of my normal self. And I didn't realize that they were symptoms that were being caused by the PCOS. So yeah, I thought I'd talk a little bit about where to start. The first steps in all of this is finding out what type of PCOS you have, because I feel like it will help you figure out your symptoms better and help you find ways to manage the symptoms essentially. And there are quizzes that you can do online to help you do that. I can add the links to the quizzes that I use to figure my PCOS type out in the podcast narrative, so that if any of our listeners want to use that, they can. But I do want to say, like, don't be surprised if you get different results from different quizzes, because some women don't really fit into one category and some symptoms also overlap. It's about spending time to figure out what your symptoms are and also what triggers them.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought I'd talk about one of the most common types of PCOS, which is insulin resistance. So insulin resistance is basically where there are higher levels of insulin than normal in your body. So this happens when your cells become a bit numb, if that's the right way to put it, to the effects of insulin, which means that your pancreas basically pumps out more and more insulin until your cells start getting the message. And so with this type of PCOS, you could struggle with your weight, especially around your stomach. You could have sugar cravings, as well as symptoms like fatigue or brain fog. And with the high levels of insulin, it drives up your androgen levels, which could cause excess hair, male pattern hair loss, acne. That's just a few of the symptoms that many women with PCOS deal with. So I mentioned before that women who have PCOS all have completely different hormonal balances, different symptoms, different underlying drivers. So I may not necessarily have the same experience to the next woman with PCOS, but I started to recognize my symptoms. And I can't stress enough how important and life-changing it was for me to take the time to figure out what was causing my symptoms to flare up. And now that I have been managing my symptoms, I can't imagine life before.
Wow, that's really interesting to know as well. And the fact that you've managed to manage your symptoms is really positive for anyone who's listening who has got PCOS or who has got any of these symptoms, or any PCOS related symptoms, even if they're not the same symptoms that you potentially have. It's good to know that there are things that can help.
Yeah, there definitely are. And it might be simple things that you think it's impossible, but it isn't.
So what helped you initially?
Look, let me just start by saying that PCOS it's really complex. I know I've said this before. Because it's so complex, it's not straightforward to treat and manage. Obviously, we know there's no cure, but it's not impossible. There are ways that you can manage your symptoms. What I would say is that we do recommend you speak to a medical practitioner, herbalist, naturopath, nutritionist, etc., before you try some of the recommendations, because obviously we don't want to make things worse for you, especially if you have underlying conditions. I obviously want to share my experience because maybe it might help someone else, but we don't obviously want to cause you harm in any way. And as we mentioned, obviously we're not medical practitioners, so it's just things that I've tried that's worked for me. So the first thing that I researched into and I tried were supplements, because for me, I felt like this was the easiest thing to add into my routine, because, lifestyle is so busy. It's just me thinking about now, trying to change my whole diet, trying to change my whole lifestyle. So for me, the easiest thing I thought I could do was just start by taking simple vitamins and supplements. So I started with vitamin D. I actually had mine tested, and to be honest, it was non-existent in my body, which would explain a lot of things. And I think it's not just for women with PCOS. I think vitamin D is so important for everyone. And because we hardly see the sun in the UK, we don't get enough of it. It's really hard. So vitamin D essentially helps It helps reduce insulin resistance and testosterone levels, but it can also help with problems such as weight gain and anxiety as well. The other things I started with were omega-3 and magnesium. So these reduce insulin resistance again, and also inflammation. The magnesium can help with sleep and anxiety. I will say, like, for our Muslim, vegan, vegetarian listeners, there are types of omega-3 tablets that you can get that don't include animal products or gelatin. So do get in touch with us if you need help with this, but there are definitely things you can find out there. The other thing was zinc. So this actually has a lot of benefits for women with PCOS, including balancing your blood sugar, optimizing hormone production, decreasing things like hair growth and acne. And for me, I think because I was obviously trying to improve my fertility at the time, I also took things like chromium and folate, which can help with ovulation. I feel like the one thing that really benefited me the most was inositol. Sometimes in Western medicine, they kind of suggest you can take metformin, which is the drug they use for people with diabetes to sort of stabilize your blood sugars. But for me, I wanted a more natural route, so I went with inositol, which is, it's sort of a natural sugar that's found in things like fruit, beans, grains, or nuts. Your body can make inositol from certain carbohydrates, but getting enough inositol through the diet is difficult, which is why I chose to go with the supplements. So the thing is, with all of this, getting any sort of supplements, or enough of any supplement rather, through your diet is really, really hard, especially given our lifestyles nowadays. Everything needs to be quick. You just want the easy way out, don't you? So anyway, with inositol, it helps improve your ovulation, decreases insulin and testosterone levels. It improves your LH to FSH ratio. This is what helps regulate your menstrual cycle, essentially. And as a bonus, it can also aid weight loss. I think it's really helped me in terms of my hunger and sugar cravings, because I know on days where I forget to take this supplement, I'm literally starving. I'm constantly thinking about food. I know it's so bad. The thing is, you actually don't realize how it really affects you in your mind. But I know on days where I don't take my inositol tablet, I'm like starving constantly. I mean, the thing is, I could go on and on and on about all of these recommendations, but maybe we should move on to something else.
Yeah, just one quick question. So you take all separately, like a multivitamin that has all of these already in them? Because I know some multivitamins that they're not great because they don't have enough of each. But what do you do? I'm just out of interest.
Yeah, so it's figuring out what dosage you need. But for me, I have one of my tablets that I take has the inositol, folate, chromium, zinc, magnesium all in one. And then my omega-3 obviously is separate. What else do I take? Vitamin D. So you can get supplements that have all of those things in it together. There are specific vitamins you can look for out there that are specifically designed for women with PCOS. But what I would say is be careful about the dosage that you're taking. Like we mentioned before, do speak to a medical professional, obviously, if you've got doubts and you're unsure about how much of these things you should be taking, because especially if you've got underlying health conditions, you don't really want to undo things that you've worked so hard to do with your body.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. So you've mentioned supplements, and you've mentioned that sometimes it's like, obviously in our busy lifestyle, it's really difficult to get some of these vitamins and through the food we eat. But are there easy ways to incorporate certain foods into your diet, or are there certain foods that if you incorporate into your diet, they will increase those vitamins that perhaps you're lacking when you have PCOS?
Yeah, I do have some recommendations that you can obviously introduce into your meals, but with eating habits, I would say try and keep it simple. Don't try and overload yourself all at once, because that's when it gets hard. Like for me, I know I've tried to follow certain diets and it's never really worked out for me because I can't really maintain it for the long term. So I'll do something for a couple of weeks and then I'll get like really busy and life sort of takes over, and then you sort of forget and you come out of that routine so quickly. But The idea, the aim, I suppose, is to build certain foods into your lifestyle, maybe slowly into your routine. So you manage to keep them there and you try to eat them on a weekly basis. So I have a health practitioner that I see, and she actually gave me a list of foods that I should be eating for PCOS and also to help with fertility. When I looked at the list, I just remember thinking to myself, oh my God, okay, this is going to be another diet. She didn't obviously say it to me like that. She was really nice about it, as in she didn't say it's a diet and you must do this and you must do that. So it wasn't putting that pressure on me, but I put that pressure on myself. She didn't mean to sort of put me off, but it does put you off with the amount of information, even the amount of information you're listening to right now. It would put some of you off, and I know that. But if you just do it slowly, and include, like the way I did it was I introduced like maybe one or two things into my diet in a week or something like that, or try and change a meal or add it into a meal that I was eating, and then sort of build it up from there. It didn't happen overnight. It took me like over a year even to kind of get used to eating things and taking the supplements and sort of figuring out what works for me and what doesn't work for me.
Can you give an example of something that you just incorporated into something you were already eating?
Yeah, of course.
I appreciate that it just works for you, and obviously it might not work for the person that's listening, but it's just to understand how potentially easy it is to incorporate things into your diet, or incorporate things into what you eat.
Of course. So for example, adding simple things like sunflower seeds or pumpkin seeds into your eggs or onto salad or something like that. And the thing is, when you look at the list of foods that you should be eating for PCOS, it's things that you already eat. It's just about having them more frequently. You look at it and you think, how can you make a meal out of that? But you can. It's stuff that you're already doing. It's things that you're like, for example, on the list that she gave me, there are things like onions, tomatoes, fennel seeds, chicken, spinach. That's stuff that you can easily put into a curry, for example. Let's be honest. Like you can easily make that into a curry, and you've got like 5 or 6 things in that already. It's just about figuring out what works for you and working that into your routine. So things like protein breakfasts for me, I know it really helps me with metabolism, and it helps me feel fuller for longer. So I kind of swapped out things like cereal for eggs in the morning. And then you want to eat anti-inflammatory foods like olives, spinach, salmon, almonds, walnuts. Lots of nuts and seeds are really good for people with PCOS. But I also feel like the whole diet culture around carbohydrates, carbs are okay. You definitely need carbs in your diet. At the end of the day, it all comes down to balance. A little bit of everything is okay. Like even for me, I haven't really restricted myself specifically to what is on that list. I do restrict my sugar intake, for example, right? But I do have a cheeky bit of cake every now and then, or chocolate or Zed's brownies every now and then, just to satisfy my cravings.
That's really helpful. Yeah, you're right. Everything in moderation, I guess. And there are a lot of things that we probably already eat and we just don't realize how good they are for us. So I guess that list also probably helps you understand that how important certain things that you probably took for granted in what you eat normally, how important they actually are.
Yeah, my medical practitioner, healthcare practitioner, whatever you want to call it, she basically did say to me that you want to try and get all of your nutrients from the food that you eat instead of trying to take the supplements. Essentially, at the end of the day, you want to get all the good things out of the food that you eat. And I know how hard it is, because when I first started, I thought to myself, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? But it's all about just taking a one step forward. And trust me, when you take that one step forward for yourself and for your health, honestly, it really does make a massive difference. Oh my goodness, how can I forget to talk about my all-time favorite thing, herbal teas, or my new all-time favorite thing, I should say. Look, I didn't think something as simple as drinking a cup of tea could benefit your whole body. Nobody thinks about that. You just think, a cup of tea would be really nice right now. But actually, there are herbal teas out there that really it does something to your body, especially when you have them regularly. So for example, something as simple as a spearmint tea can reduce testosterone levels in your body, which essentially could decrease unwanted hair growth and other symptoms. So I've actually tested this myself, and it did actually work. There were clear improvements in my testosterone levels before having the tea, and then a few months after having the spearmint tea, my testosterone levels, they were so much lower than they were before I started having it. And you wouldn't think something like that could help, but actually it did.
No. That's crazy. I never thought something like spearmint tea. I mean, to be honest, I haven't heard of spearmint. I've heard of peppermint, but not spearmint. And that's just such an interesting fact, because herbal teas, I mean, if you're worried about consuming calories or something like that, then a herbal tea is ideal anyway.
Yeah, I mean, spearmint tea is not that popular, and it's not so easy to find in the UK. But obviously, if you look at like healthcare shops and things like that, they do sell it like loose leaf herbal tea. But it's not just spearmint tea. There's things like raspberry leaf tea, which help the ovaries, and like lemon balm that help with sleep and anxiety. The list just goes on, really. It's just about doing a little bit of research and trying to figure it out. And obviously, we're there. You can message me if you've got any questions about anything. I'm happy to obviously provide help and advice on things that have worked out for me and stuff. But I will say that all of these things in combination has helped with different aspects of the PCOS. But overall, I feel like my whole body kind of thanked me for it. Like, for example, now, if I miss taking like one of my supplements, my body feels the strain. So I do know that it's kind of worked for me, but don't expect to see the results straight away. It is a sort of ongoing thing, and it did take me at least 3 months to start of like making certain changes to start feeling the benefits in my body. So there's a lot of information to take in, and it does seem a little bit daunting right now, and you may feel like you don't know where to start, but it's about baby steps. It took me over a year to get into a good routine with all my supplements and eating habits and lifestyle in general. Thing is, there's no need to add like pressure on yourself. Do it because you want to do it. Do it because you want to improve your health. Like, slow and steady is the key. So if you were to do something today, I don't know, start with changing one thing. For example, introducing spearmint tea or taking a vitamin D supplement. It's little things like that will sort of help you in your journey.
One question. So going back to what we discussed earlier about deficiencies in yourself. So how do you go about finding what you're deficient in? Just in simple terms. I mean, I think I know the answer to this, but what can you do to find out?
You can go to your doctor, medical practitioner, and ask to have a blood test done to figure certain things out. I know a lot of people don't have this option. I did it privately. One thing, it was during COVID, okay? So we couldn't really go to the GPs, and I obviously wanted answers. So you can test things like your testosterone level, your blood sugars, your LH, your FSH, your progesterone, your estrogen. You could test everything in your body, your vitamin D as well. I would say if you're doing it through the NHS though, if you think you're insulin resistant, what they normally do is they test your blood sugar levels, but they don't actually test the insulin resistance. So you need to make sure that you're getting the fasting insulin test if you think you're insulin resistant, so that you can either rule it out or know for sure that that's what's affecting you.
I mean, one thing I would say on that is I recently had a blood test done, and I rang back a week later, like you're supposed to, and asked what the results like. And they were like, oh yeah, everything's fine. And I'm just thinking to myself, I know there's something that's not 100% fine. So I remember you telling me, go and get the results of your blood test. And so I've gone back to the surgery. I need to pick them up. But I've gone and asked them, can I get my results? And they said, yeah, of course you can. We'll print it out for you. And then that way, doing your own, I guess, a bit of research. Because sometimes the doctors, they don't have time to tell what's normal for one person is not normal for another person. And they probably work on averages. And like you said, when they test you for certain things, they're testing on a normal, healthy body. they're not testing for someone with PCOS.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, you know your body. Your body has instincts. It tells you things. You know better than anyone else what you're going through. And sometimes it is nothing, but sometimes you just want to know what it is. Even if it does turn out to be nothing, you want to investigate it. There is a reason for why you're feeling the way you're feeling, and you want to get to the bottom of it. It is worth being persistent. I know it's really frustrating sometimes, but it is worth being persistent and just doing the work, figuring out what works for you, what foods or what supplements help you. I know that some dietitians or nutritionists, when it comes to PCOS, they talk about things like cutting out dairy and cutting out gluten. It's simply because it can create inflammation. So I've also tried that. So my healthcare practitioner said to me, you shouldn't be cutting out anything from your diet if it's not affecting your body, essentially. So now I know, for me, I can't have dairy anymore because it makes me sick. But with gluten, I can still eat gluten and it's fine. But it's also certain dairy products that aggravate me, like milk or cream. Cheese is okay.
Oh, I'm glad about that, because you love your cheese.
I know, I do love my cheese. I was heartbroken when I was trying to do this, get off dairy completely. I was heartbroken because you know how much I love cheese. Like, it's not like I eat it every day, but I do like a good cheese every now and then. And, you know, it was heartbreaking for me to have to cut that out of my diet completely. You have to try and cut it out and then see if that makes a difference to your body, but then also reintroduce it and see if that makes a difference to your body as well, because you won't know. It's all about trial and error. I know it's really daunting and it sounds really hard and really difficult.
Actually, I don't think it does. It doesn't sound that. For someone who's just listening into it and who doesn't have PCOS, it doesn't actually sound as difficult if you take the little steps and if you don't put pressure on yourself. I think it's when you start putting pressure on yourself and you want to have overnight results, you want to incorporate all these lists, all these different things into your diet, change the way you're drinking, your teas and everything. If you try and do that overnight, of course it's going to be daunting. But if, like you said, take the baby steps, do one thing a day or a week, just make one small change. Yeah. And focus on like your body and just trying to, I guess, understand, like take all those triggers into account. I mean, have you seen any changes once you've incorporated or eliminated something? And it's just being more self-aware, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely about being self-aware. I know that I really wasn't in sync with my body. Really, I wasn't before, but now I'm like so aware of everything that happens. Like if something happened, like if something changes in my body, I could tell you exactly what it is and why it is that's happened to me, because now I'm just so used to it, and I know what's affecting things and what's triggering things. But again, it's a journey, and your body changes and you have to adapt with your body. It's obviously it's not ideal that there isn't a cure, but there are things that you can do with PCOS that make things better for you.
That's really positive to hear.
Yeah.
Pete, you mentioned that you're seeing a health practitioner. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that and how that's helped you?
Yeah, so the lady that I'm seeing, she is a Chinese medicine doctor, but she's also an acupuncturist. I basically sought her out because I went through the NHS. I was worried about my fertility and things like that. So they referred me on to a gynecologist. But the gynecology appointment that they gave me was like, I don't know, maybe like 10 months down the line. And I thought to myself, I don't really want to wait for 10 months. And what if then I go to the gynecologist and there's nothing that they can do to help me? So I did some research online and I've read that Chinese medicine and acupuncture is meant to be really good for women with PCOS, and a lot of women who've done it have seen like amazing results with their body. So although what I was doing with the supplements and my eating habits and things like that, it was working to help the symptoms, but I had to do a lot more in terms of my fertility part of it. And actually, I found out later when I went to see my health practitioner, she'd said to me that actually my case is quite difficult. Then I realized that, okay, I'm glad I went to see her, because I wouldn't have been able to do that myself. Because some women with PCOS, they say that the minute they start taking the inositol, for example, they're just fertile straight away. For some women, it takes a couple of months. And I'd obviously tried that for, I don't know, maybe 6 months, and it wasn't working out for me. So I knew I had to do something else. So that's when I went to the Chinese medicine doctor. She started the appointment asking me about the problems that I faced and things like, the hormone stuff. So we spent a lot of time talking about what had happened through my whole PCOS journey. And then obviously she kind of reassured me, and she said not to worry. Although she said that my case is difficult, she did say that not to lose hope, because Chinese medicine is so powerful. I know that now, but at the time I didn't really know much about it. It's something that takes time. It's not going to happen straight away. So she already reassured me of that before we'd started with the whole thing. And what she did in the first meeting, because I basically went to see her for the herbal side of it, I didn't go and see her for the acupuncture, because I must admit I was a bit worried about that. It's not that I'm scared of the needles or anything like that. It's just that it slightly is a bit scary. Do you know what I mean? When you think
and if someone doesn't know, just for anyone who's listening out there, what is acupuncture? If they don't know, like you've just mentioned needles, so I can imagine if someone doesn't know what acupuncture is, and the first thing you say is it's to do with needles, they might automatically be resistant. But how would you describe what acupuncture actually is?
So they have like these really thin, long needles, and what they do is with Chinese medicine and holistic medicine, they believe that there's energy in your body, and there are pressure points essentially that link up to certain organs and certain like systems within your body. What happens is that pressure sort of builds up in certain areas, and to alleviate pressure from areas and help with the blood flow and all of the, and energy flow rather, they insert like tiny little needles into your skin that supposedly releases that and helps with the flow of energy and blood through your body. I hope that's making a bit of sense.
Yeah, that does make sense, because I remember I used to get my massage done for my back a long time ago, and the lady that used to do it, she used to talk about energy in the body and how there are toxins that are built up in your blood, and I never quite understood what she actually meant. But she used to talk about like flushing out your toxins, and that there's certain parts of your body that are connected to organs, and that's exactly what you've just said now. So it does make sense. Thank you.
Yeah, I think like with massage techniques, they teach you that as well. It's the same kind of principle with like Reiki and cupping and all sort of, I would say, Eastern techniques, not so much the Western techniques, but a lot of the Eastern techniques believe in holistic care, if that makes sense. And I must admit, I've started to believe, I mean, I knew about it, but like you don't really put much thought into it. But now that I'm actually doing this and going through the process, like I can see it. I'll give you an example, right? With the acupuncture. I went to her for one of my normal treatment that I normally do on a weekly basis. And I'd had a cough, like a really chesty cough, right? And she said to me, you don't really sound very well. And I was like, yeah, I'm not really feeling well. I've got a really chesty cough and whatever. And she said, okay, I'll put some needles in to help you with that, right?
What, in your throat?
No. So like I said, the points where you think the needles are going to go. For example, you think you've got a cough, so the needles go in your throat. It actually doesn't. It doesn't align at all. So, okay, let me just tell you about this bit, which maybe I should have mentioned earlier. The needles mainly go in your stomach, your arms and heads, and your legs. Okay. And she does put like 1 or 2 in your head, but honestly speaking, you can't feel it, and you're not supposed to feel it. Sometimes you do feel a little pinch here and there when it goes in, but it doesn't hurt at all, and they stay in your skin for I would say maybe like a half an hour period, but you don't feel them at all once they're in. Or you're not supposed to, if you have a good acupuncturist rather, you're not supposed to feel the needles, basically.
Yeah, so if it starts hurting, people step away.
Yeah, but that's what she normally asks at the end once she's put them in. She's like, is there anyone that feels uncomfortable or that's hurting you? And she takes it out, because it's not supposed to hurt you. And she even says the last thing she wants to do is hurt you. So that's not their intention, and actually it doesn't. The needle is so small and thin, it doesn't really hurt when it goes in. There are some days where I do feel it, but I think as well, she said it's to do with your body and the sensitivity. So on, like, what it's like with hormones, there are days where you're a lot more sensitive than normal. But most of the time you don't feel at all.
So after she put those needles in for your throat, did your throat get better?
Yeah, so with that story, she touched on your calf, basically. She was pressing it and she said, can you tell me where it hurts? And I thought, that's a bit weird. But okay, fine. So she started pressing and it wasn't hurting. Then all of a sudden she came to this point and it hurt. Like, it not like hurt, but you know when someone like really presses you quite hard and it starts to pain? She wasn't pressing me hard, but all of a sudden it was hurting. And I was like, yeah, that's hurting. She popped a needle in that exact position. And I promise you, by that evening, my phlegm had disappeared. How weird is that?
Oh, that's insane.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's crazy, actually. And you
So it
don't think
definitely does work.
yeah, and I've seen results with my period. So when I went to see her, I wasn't getting periods at all regularly, even despite taking the inositol, even despite taking, changing my eating habits and stuff like that. And I found out later on, it's because she said my case itself was just really difficult.
Right.
Other women might not struggle as much as I did, but there might be women who are on the same level as me and they are struggling with it. So my periods were almost non-existent when I went to see her. I did get them sporadically here and there, but they weren't regular at all. So what she said to me is the first thing we need to do in everything is to try and regulate your cycle and try and get your body balanced. So that was her job. And she said to me, look, it's going to take time, but you need to give it 6 months. And I thought to myself, oh my God, it's a long time to think about it, to have to wait. And you get to a certain point and you become a little bit impatient, don't you? And you just want results straight away. But
yeah, of course, especially if you're doing so many other things in the background and it's like you've tried all these things and now you're at the point where you've done so much and you just want the results now because you've been doing, you've been adding vitamins in your diet, you've been changing the way you eat, incorporating different foods, and I guess you want results. But one question I did have, sorry, before you continue, you said that your healthcare professional said that your case was really difficult. Why did she say that? Is it because you weren't getting your periods for a long time, or did she think it had been such a long time since you'd started doing something? Was there a particular reason, or did she just
I think it's a mixture of both cases. It's the fact that it's been such a long time and obviously I hadn't done anything about it for such a long time and I just left it, which is partly my fault as well because but it was just the whole experience and the trauma of it all. I just didn't want to. And then she said to me, give me 6 months and see how you feel after that. And I promise you, within a month, I started feeling changes in my body. A month of doing the acupuncture and the herbal medicine.
Oh, wow.
So it was in combination. So she said to me, try the acupuncture. So in our first appointment, she put in a couple of needles and sort of gave me a feel for how it would be. And she said, look, if you're not comfortable with this, and obviously you don't have to carry on, but it's worth trying it. And in combination, it's probably going to be better for you. So for some of you, you might not have to go down the acupuncture route. You could maybe just do the herbal medicine. And also, if you're not really comfortable with the acupuncture, then I would suggest even looking into the herbal medicine itself. But she said in combination, it will work. And within a month, I started feeling changes in my body. I could feel a massive, massive difference. Within 4 months of the treatment, I got my period. And I have been getting
that's
my period.
amazing.
Yeah.
So how long was it, if you don't mind me asking, how long was it that you weren't getting a period regularly? So do you know how many years, or have you lost count?
It's probably since forever, since forever.
Oh my goodness.
I don't even remember, even in my teens, to be honest, I wasn't really getting a regular period. I did get it sporadically, but it was more frequent when I was younger. As I got older, it sort of was worse and worse. I think there was even a point where I went over a year without getting a period. Yeah, for me to have it regularly is such a blessing for me now. It's changed my life, honestly, seeing her, because I sort of lost hope. And especially when I received that appointment and I thought, okay, I'm going to go to the gynecologist and then what's going to happen, because I've been waiting for so long and I have to wait. And I'm glad that I didn't wait. I'm glad that I went to try and do something about it. Yeah. And the thing is, she did say to me that don't rule out Western medicine completely, because sometimes you need that in combination. Things that she can't do is like IVF. You do need that sometimes. Yeah. But if you use them in combination, it works very well together. I'm not saying completely don't go and see your GP about certain things, because you will need that. Like, you will need to do follow-up blood tests to test your hormone levels and things. It's just been incredible, the success I've had with it, because you read stuff online and you don't really think like, oh, it's not going to work. And I think for me, I got to the point where I was slightly losing hope as well, because I tried so many things and I tried it for such a long time, and I just wasn't getting the results that other people said they were getting.
Oh, that's so amazing that it's actually been working for you and you're seeing the results, because that in itself is going to make you feel happier. And then the happy hormones obviously help in terms of your general well-being anyway.
Yeah.
But that's amazing, that is. Is there anything else that you think has helped? I mean, we've mentioned food, vitamins, acupuncture, Chinese medicine. Did you change anything in terms of exercise or anything like that?
Yeah, so what I sort of found out through my whole research in doing PCOS and stuff is that apparently, so I used to go to the gym like crazy when I was younger. I used to do intense exercise classes and HIIT training and all of this stuff. And
Oh, wow, I didn't know that about you.
Yeah, and I used to have a membership at the women's only gym in town. But yeah, I used to go there for a long time, and I never managed to lose weight in all of that. If anything, it was getting worse. And I thought to myself at the time, what the heck is going on? How can I possibly, I'm hardly eating anything. I'm exercising like crazy. How is it that I'm still not losing weight? How is it that I eat a slice of cake and I'm put on 2 kilos? How is that possible?
Yeah.
And later on, I found out that apparently women with PCOS are not supposed to be doing high intensity workouts and stressing your body out, because when you do those kind of workouts, your body gets stressed, which then means that your body is pumping cortisol everywhere, and that doesn't help the PCOS at all. If anything, it makes your symptoms worse, and it flares up a lot of things. So what I found is that you have to do more low intensity exercises. So you could do like slow weight training, or even going for a walk. Honestly, just going for a walk makes more difference than you going to the gym and doing these high intensity exercises. It's crazy. And all my life, I just thought to myself, what the heck is wrong with me? And you know what? It helps with your general mental health anyway, just doing some kind of exercise. So I've just gone onto YouTube and looked for PCOS friendly workouts. And I've just incorporated some of those things. Like yoga really helps, kind of slow, sort of non-strenuous exercises. And it works. It really does, because that's managed to help me lose weight in all of that. Obviously changing, like eating well and doing the exercise in combination. And all that time when I was basically going to the gym and pumping out all this iron, nothing. Then finding about this and doing slow exercises, I couldn't even believe it, said, honestly. I couldn't believe it. And all that time
That's
I was
so irritating though.
out.
You put so much energy into the gym, and your membership, of course, that's extra money as well. And you're not getting any results. And then doing something as simple as obviously yoga is not exactly simple, but as in something simpler than doing these intense trainings. And that's actually been helping you. Just going for a walk is helping you.
Yeah,
that's brilliant.
This is just it. So every day, like obviously when it's nice, not when it's snowing, but when it's all right outside.
Now.
Oh God, it's so hot. It's been crazy today, hasn't it? Every day we sort of try and go out for a walk when the weather's nice, obviously. And on weekends, if we can, do like a longer-ish walk. And then I just incorporate like half an hour of exercise, maybe twice a week. And that's it. It doesn't have to be complicated. It just has to be simple, and just start slow and steady. Just incorporate what you can, or do what you can, really.
Oh wow, that's been really useful to know. Thank you for listening to this episode of Not Your Typical Sister podcast. If you have any questions about anything or comments around what we've discussed, then please drop us a message and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Until next time, bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of Not Your Typical Sister.
We would love to hear your thoughts and comments. You can leave us comments and reviews on whichever streaming service you are listening through.
Don't forget to join our tribe on Instagram and Facebook at Not Your Typical Sister.
Speak to you next time.